Qualche settimana fa abbiamo avuto il piacere di ospitare una delle figure più affascinanti, almeno per me, di questo mondo profumato. Si tratta di Edward Bodenham, nono erede della famiglia Floris e proprietario di uno dei marchi più antichi dell'intera profumeria mondiale. Con il contributo tecnico fornito da Nicola Pozzani, profumiere italiano, allievo del maestro Lenà e da più di 10 anni naso in house di Floris, abbiamo spaziato attraverso i secoli, i racconti di personaggi famosi, storie di famiglia e molto altro. Il tutto trasportati dall'elegante e raffinato sentore delle fragranze firmate Floris, dal mio amato Special 127 all'intramontabile Elite, dal più moderno Golden Under e la novità Purple Memoir ad una sorpresa finale con Marilyn Monroe sullo sfondo. Se qualcuno di voi volesse poi acquistare una fragranza firmata Floris su 50 ml, potrà ricevere 2 mini taglie da 7 ml in omaggio attraverso l'acquisto di questa fragranza. Il codice da utilizzare sarà 1730-Floris con la S maiuscola. E le fragranze che potete ricevere saranno Santal, numero 89, Purple Memoir, Golden Amber oppure l'iconico Elite. Welcome everybody and welcome back on Profumi di Nicchia. We are here with two great characters of the English perfumery, Edward Bodenham and Nicola Pozzani. Thank you to be here.
Thank you very much for having us.
It's an honor for me to host you in my channel, in my office. In this chat with you, I would love to explore all the secrets of the English perfumery, but on the same time, I'm always been fascinating by the fact that both of you work some for a blood reason, another one for passion reason, I guess, for one of the oldest brand in the perfumery world. Because as I like to say with my colleagues, if we think that Floris Foundation was closer to the discovery of America than to us, it's something weird. Because in 5 years, your brand will turn 300 years.
300, yeah, that's right.
So if Floris exists since 300 years, probably there's a reason. And there's a reason that is created on originality, a very strong identity, and a olfactive culture that has been spread around the world in these centuries, I would say.
Well, it's very kind of you to say. An honour to be here as well. Thank you so much for inviting us.
My company has less than 10 years of life, so maybe
A lot
I
of
appreciate
life in those 10 years.
Yeah,
for sure,
yeah, we are very fast times right now. And I will start from a question that I always wonder since I started this job, also because English perfumery is probably the one I prefer. I am a big fan of your brand. I'm a big fan of Penhaligon's. I've been a big fan of the old bottles of Creed, such as Royal Mayfair, Royal Water, Aerolfa. And on the same time, I always look at this perfumery as something very dry, very fresh, very elegant, and very professional. It's not something sexy, it's not something bold. It's something, it's a fragrance that doesn't shout. It's a fragrance that talks in a very sweet way. And also having the possibility to talk with Nicola, is there a rule to create such as fragrances? Or is just, I don't know, the Floris DNA, the Penhaligon's DNA, the Creed DNA?
I think, sort of speaking from Floris, and I've sort of grown up, been their sort of man and boy really in the business, working in school holidays and all sorts. I suppose we sort of grow up with a sort of a feel of what feels right for the company and for our fragrances, but we tend to get inspired by all sorts of different things to create fragrances. But I think quite often we can be sort of working on something and smell it and just sort of think, no, that doesn't seem like it's the right fit for us. And then most, you know, hopefully all the time, we work on something and then we sort of just instantly know when it is right for Floris and for our range. Really, I suppose it's just something, having kind of grown up with it for my whole life, personally speaking.
But like from your family, you didn't inherited something, some secret on formulas or some. Okay, we can do this because this is not our DNA. For example, I would say you cannot do an overdose of vanilla and ambrosanide because it's not our DNA. So which is your DNA? Is something you never talk with your family? You already know which is your DNA, or how does it work?
I think it's just something that, yeah, it just sort of feels right. If it feels right, then it feels right. But and I suppose looking back through our formula books, we have certain ingredients that you can sort of see are almost like a sort of signature style, really, of my family members who've created fragrances over the years. So you can, I suppose, pick out certain notes that we tend to use, but I think it's just a kind of a feeling whether something is right for us and what is not right. But also I think having sort of been fortunate enough to have always been in the same location, which used to be the family home, it almost feels, I like to sort of romantically think that there's a bit of the sort of the magic from the family always being there that kind of goes into the fragrance. They kind of make themselves in a way.
Yeah, and also the new launch, I think, is the perfect picture of what you just said, because with the story of Ivy Lodge. But I don't spoiler anything. We will arrive with our discussion. And under a technical point of view, Nicola, some people said me that is also a way the English parfumery works on citrus. Is it something you can confirm? Is it a different approach to, for example, aromatics raw ingredients? What do you think about this? Which is your experience?
Well, in this journey it's been now nearly 10 years I've been working with florists, which is an incredible privilege. I've had the chance to appreciate the heritage, because I guess that is one of the key words, heritage, under so many aspects. First of all, you need to think that florist is a result of culture and history, because it's very much based in what is the citadel of men's fashion, bespoke perfumery, because we also do bespoke perfumery florists. The place where this literally been a pilgrimage of customers, the most iconic customers all over the centuries, mostly gentlemen, but not only, that have gone down Jermyn Street to have their suits, ties, shoes, hats, mostly custom made. So it very much exudes that authenticity of what you can call gentleman bespoke fashion. So there is an element of understatement, as you have nicely put it earlier, which very much, I think, comes across in everything that we do. Perhaps understatement, we were discussing about this with Ed earlier, with a touch, with an element of eccentricity, which I think is always, also if you think of British fashion, what is, the core of the style. And to answer your question more specifically, again, it's a matter of history, because when florists started in the 1700s, the style was citrus. Think of eau de cologne, which was made in that era. So
but also because Juan Femillas came from Spanish, so
exactly.
The land of citrus, of orange,
of some of the scents that he grew up with, smelling in his youth.
Like
yeah,
we can do in Italy. It's more or less the same latitude, the same nature. We can be inspired by.
Absolutely. So citrus very much was one of the key genres, and thinking also one of our earliest fragrances, so the earliest citrus fragrance, which is limes. So that note in particular was quite trendy. In fact, we weren't the only ones, we can say this, right? Making limes fragrances at that specific time. But maybe we're the longest one standing that still make limes.
I think so.
And, from that onwards, there's been throughout the centuries this desire to revisit the citrus family. Also, as you say, because it goes back to our Mediterranean roots. Floris, that's also what makes it special. It's an English company with Mediterranean roots. So it's a very interesting DNA. But then it's also to do with the floral, right? Which is effectively the key style in the Victorian age. So slightly later.
Yeah, so two of our oldest fragrances are limes, which was created in the 1700s, when London in the 1700s would have been Well, it was created in the summertime, so in the summer in the 1700s would have been quite unpleasant, I would have thought, in London at those times. Right. So the limes was created to be a sort of breath of fresh air and cut through that those sort of not so nice smells and make you feel fresh and energized and clean as well. Yeah, so to uplift the senses really. So and so that's one of our very earliest fragrances, and still very popular today. But also Lily of the Valley sort of came quite soon afterwards, and then one stage in our history, just looking back through some of our sort of marketing material and photographs, we were actually described as florist flower perfumes. So that was a huge part of our repertoire as well. All these different flowers that we used to make, and so yes, we still sort of have that floral side of our range as well. So yeah, good combination.
And also, you just said something very interesting, because nowadays, if you talk about a gentleman fragrance and you talk about flowers, it's a bit weird, because many people think that flowers are a typical feminine thing. But I always said that the rose was the flower of kings of France. Orange blossom was the one of the favorite flowers of Albert and Victoria, both of them. So it's not a matter of gender. It's just the beauty of the flower. I know also King Charles is a big fan of linden blossom. I don't know if it's true. They told me in this way, but I don't know King Charles. You know King Charles, I don't know. I don't.
I believe so, yeah. But no, that's so true. And, in the early days of, our early days of florists and perfumery in general, men wore rose fragrances and jasmine and all sorts. And it's only, I think I'm correct in saying that it's sort of in the 1930s that the fragrances got split into the different genders, really. So yeah.
When the fashion arrived to this industry and decided that man this way, woman this other, the other way.
And I think it's worth mentioning one of the most iconic floral notes at Florist, Carnation, which was the favorite of one of our most fond customers, Oscar Wilde.
Talking about eccentricity, Wilde, I think, is the best.
Well, when you come to Jermyn Street, because we definitely want you there.
I want to come too, so...
we will show you this beautiful statue of Bob Brummel.
Okay.
So Bob Brummel there's a statue of him on Jermyn Street, and he's credited for being the inventor of the English suit, and also one of the leading characters of the dandy movement, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And that is very much having that sort of eccentric flair and style, which you see a lot of in Jermyn Street on a daily basis, usually at St James's. So it still has an element of that, which is great.
Yeah, as I told you, when I've been in London the first time 2 years ago, more or less, because my wife brought me there because I've never been, so we have to go. So, and I spent I've been twice in a year, so sooner or later I'll be back, and for sure I'll come to visit Jermyn Street, all the boutique, and very curious about.
And our laboratory.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
But so you produce in 1889 Jermyn Street?
Yes. So everything that we create starts in the perfume laboratory. Okay. We are, I'm still pinching myself because I don't believe this is actually true. So, I started my career training in big fragrance houses. So everything, of course, was very metric and modern. My first job was in New York. So when I came to London and worked for Florist, it was a dramatic change, because I was told, so this is how we make fragrances. We use imperial glassware from the last century. We blend in fluid drams and fluid ounces. And that's what I've been doing for the best part of the last 10 years. And you'll see it's fantastic. We still very much do follow the authenticity. So this is how fragrances have been blended over the last 300 years. And we create, mostly, as I was saying, for our customers. So bespoke is a big part of what we do. But also some of the fragrances I've personally created, or my colleagues, because florists have worked with different perfumers, they've all started there. So there is that element of handmade authenticity that very much starts in this atelier. You will see it's original 1800s atelier. The building where we operate is a 1600s, and it's designed by the same architect of St. Paul's Cathedral, Christopher Wren.
Okay.
It's unique. It's time travel. When people come there, sometimes the problem is that they don't want to leave.
It's not as cool as Rogoredo here, but I think can be
very
fun
cool
working
in
there.
here. You should be very proud of what you've put together. We're very impressed.
Before I said something that is not the main reason why I invited you here, but one of the main reason, which is the most fascinating trend I've seen, I studied in the perfumery world, which is the royal warrant. And I remember the first time I did my first training in 2016, and they explained me this thing, and I was okay. Oh my god! Like, you have a perfumery brand, and you talk with the king, you talk with the queen, and you decide to make a fragrance for the queen, for the king. It's so exciting, but at the same time, I imagine like the royal family living on a cloud, living on a different planet than us. And so I would like to know all of the story, all of the process, and I know that you have just renewed the royal warrant from King Charles, and so I want to know the story, everything about it.
Okay. I'll try not to bore you too much.
No,
Details. But,
bore me, don't worry.
well, to hold a royal warrant, you have to have your products have to have been bought by the royal household for a minimum of 5 years. I think I'm right in saying, and then you are able to be the holder of a royal warrant if it's really sort of recognition of continued quality of service and of product, or whatever your industry is. And our first royal warrant was actually granted from King George IV, but actually in 1800 when he was the Prince of Wales, and then 1820 when he was the Prince Regent, and then the first royal warrant from a reigning monarch was from King George IV in 1820. So my family at the time were obviously very proud, and so our shop front has this original kind of coat of arms from King George IV at the front, and so now that's become sort of part of it's protected because it's a listed building. So it's lovely to have that on display for so many years. And so since that first royal warrant, we have received 17 up to today. Well, 18 actually now, because we were fortunate enough. And it was, such an honour to receive the royal warrant from His Majesty the King, just last May, I think it was. So that's amazing, and so yeah, very proud of that.
Okay. And how does it work? Like, I know that you had already the royal warrant when he was Prince of Wales.
That's right.
So he changed the position. He's not the Prince of Wales. He became the king. So you basically have to change the warrant.
Yes, so the coat of arms from Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, we were the only appointed perfumer to the Queen. Coat of arms has to be removed from the packaging 2 years after she passed away, and also the Prince of Wales coat of arms has to come off the packaging as well. So they've extended it slightly, so I think we've got until May this year, and then we've seen the artwork now for the King's coat of arms, and also Queen Camilla, the Queen. So they have just been launched as well, and so we're just sort of in the process of updating our packaging, and then we're able to display their coat of arms as well, which is amazing. Yeah, real honour. So nice to sort of see everything evolve, over time.
So it's not possible to see them in Jermyn Street boutique smelling, I don't know, blotters or something like this. Is more very, I don't know, bureaucratic path when you never discuss with them, or not.
We have to be very, very discreet.
Okay. Sorry. Sorry, I forgot we were talking about.
They're more than
the
welcome
crown.
to come to the shop though and browse.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, okay.
But
I
maybe
don't want to put you in a not comfortable position.
what's maybe interesting for you to know is also when and how we create. So normally, when there is a royal happening, which could be coronation or a monarch's birthday or the diamond jubilee, then florists would create a fragrance. And it's either a private commission, so like a gift,
Okay.
or a fragrance that enters the collection. And to give you an example, I mean, there's so many that would have been made through the years, but what is still in the collection, for instance, is a fragrance called Bouquet de la Reine, Queen's Bouquet. That was created the first time, clearly. It's not the same formula. When Queen Victoria married Prince Albert, which was, of course, the wedding of the century back then. Or recently with coronation, we had the chance to create a private gift for the king, and also for Queen Elizabeth II when she turned 90. And this gentleman over here asked me if I was interested in creating a fragrance for Her Majesty, and I thought it would be rude to say no. So, so I still can't believe that happened, and I'll be forever grateful to Edward. But
It's a great fragrance.
so we just had the chance to create for the Queen as well. So private gift for her 90th birthday. So it's always, again, everything that happens with the royals, as much as with our, bespoke customers, with any individual or personalities that come to florists, we are custodians of authenticity. And it's always a result of whatever we make is the result of relationships, effectively, isn't it? Of special moments, special encounters, something meaningful. And personally, that's why I love florists so much, because to me it's beyond perfumery, and it very much intertwines with history, with whatever is happening around you. And like myself, I feel like I'm just, the 300 years old you are this tiny bit, and you are contributing to this most amazing.
I think we'll be very grateful because the power of a fragrance is also to give an emotion, move a person in the stomach and change their feelings. And I think that, especially for you, that you create a fragrance, create something to give a particular emotion to the Queen is not a dream, it's more than a dream. And is also, I think what you said can be connected to what I'm saying. You create something that is more than perfumery. You have a bond with this person, which can be a VIP customer, a member of the royal family, or I think a normal guy.
Yeah.
But you create something that bond you and the person, the customer, in a very deep way. I'm a bit envious about this because it's a very cool thing. I know how people are happy when you find the right fragrance for them. And
You do this as well.
Yeah, but I don't do anything. I just put the fragrance someone else.
Yeah,
has
but
created.
that's a big responsibility.
Yeah, I see the happiness on their faces.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Exactly.
So I can imagine the happiness when they see something that is done for them, and their eyes are grateful for what you've done. And it's also very fascinating the fact that when we smell something, there is no level. Like the king and the normal people are on the same level. Like,
Exactly.
emotions is always that.
We all appreciate it
Yeah.
together. And, yeah.
Talking about emotions and talking about important customer of your brand, I would like to start from probably the favorite fragrance, probably the fragrance I like the most of your brand, which is Special 127. Start to make question about the fragrances. So we talk about citrusy, we talk about royal family. So let's talk about one of them, probably the fragrance I like the most of your brand, which is Special 127. One of the two fragrances, at least they say in this way, that Winston Churchill used to have. I discovered this fragrance 2 years ago. I started to spray Special 127 after some content we did for Instagram. And I said, okay, but this is amazing. it's it's so subtle, it's so clean, it's fresh, it's elegant, but as you said, you have that hint of weirdness that is very fascinating. So I would love to know the story of behind the fragrance and maybe some cool facts that we cannot read on the website. And under the chemical point of view, under the technical point of view, why this fragrance is so amazing. Let's start smelling them. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, I read on the back. How many spray an English gentleman should do with his fragrance?
Well, I think it's down to the individuals. We see, but yeah, there are so many different ways, as you know, but I don't know. I'm trying to think how many. I'd probably go for.
How many
have
do you do?
4 sprays, I suppose.
4?
I tend to. Yeah, sometimes maybe more.
I think Nicola was like 40, but
I don't know.
Depends
I
on
thought you
sort
put
of day
less.
I'm having on.
Exactly. And maybe also type of fragrance.
And what type of fragrance? Exactly.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, special number 127, the name is quite unusual in itself, and it was actually the reason it got its name was because it was created for a Russian duke who was exiled in Paris at the time in 1890, and this was his bespoke fragrance.
Okay.
And when he passed away, he didn't have any family members to carry on wearing the fragrance and to sort of for him to hand it down to. So it was decided by my family at the time to launch it into the range because it was such a great fragrance, and because his formula was on page 127 of the specials book, then it got called special number 127. So we still have that specials book with the formula on in our, I think it's in our perfumery actually, and then it went on to have another life of being a fragrance that Sir Winston Churchill used to wear, and also Eva Peron as well. And I was told by a customer recently who went to the Eva Peron Museum in Buenos Aires that there's a bottle of it on her dressing table there, which is, I didn't know. Somebody must have had one in their home and lent it to the museum, which is great.
Did you know that Eva Peron have been buried here in Milano? Because when
No, I didn't know
she
that.
died in Argentina, they were scared about people could destroy or I don't know damage the body, and so they brought the body in Italy, and he have been buried in Musocco. I guess they brought her back to Argentina.
That's an interesting fact.
But it's cool. So you conquer both the northern part of the world and also the southern part of the world, like the English Empire.
And it does have such a unisex appeal to it, being very much an eau de cologne style fragrance.
As a freshness that is not take it for granted, is complex. You have this dryness given by the aromatics that is, it works perfectly. It rounds perfectly the sharpness of the citrus. Also give this. I know that like people maybe today want something that can make them appear in a crowd. So a fragrance that has to shout.
It's quite subtle. This one. Yeah,
This fragrance has more than you said that 1907, right?
it was originally 1890. That was created.
1890. So
yeah.
it's almost 140 years.
Yeah.
And okay, they changed a bit the formula, of course, due to IFRA.
It's one that I don't wear that often, but whenever I do, I always think I should wear this more often. I absolutely love it. But I think
Okay, now
so.
I have to ask you which is the fragrance you wear. Maybe for sure we
Probably-
won't be on the table. I know.
It tends to be sometimes if we're working on something, I'll wear that at the time. But I suppose the ones I always come back to are German Street. That's one that I really personally love, and also Elite as well, because it's one that my grandfather used to wear, and so I have that sort of nostalgic connection with it. And I just sort of I love that fragrance as well. I find it's sort of something that they mean all different things to me in different parts of my life and everything, which is which I love the fact that you're so this will sort of remind you of when your son was born as
Yeah,
well, and
yeah,
you'll have
yeah.
that lovely connection to that through the fragrance,
I
which
have
is
like
amazing.
10, 15 fragrances that reminds me the period when he was born.
Brilliant.
And the funny thing is that every time I spray them, I'm happy because I'm not remembering that day. My mind is remember it.
Such a special time in your life. Yeah,
I cannot control it.
that's lovely.
It's very cool.
Maybe he will recognize this scent. And by the way, it's one of my favorite fragrances too.
No, it's
It's very original.
it's incredible how such a classical fragrance is still contemporary today.
Yeah, we've had actually a lot of Winston Churchill, talking about Winston Churchill this year, because it's been actually the anniversaries.
Okay.
So 150 years since his birth.
Okay.
So in London, there's been
November, yeah.
in November, yeah. So there's been a lot of events taking place in London. We actually did host an event with Paul Roger, who are the makers of his favorite champagne.
Okay.
And there is this very beautiful story that apparently Winston Churchill used to drink a bottle of champagne every morning for breakfast. So we couldn't resist then teaming up with the champagne makers and host an event in his celebration. And we had one of the beauty journalists in the UK come into the event, and it was the first time that she had discovered it herself. She left this comment, which I think was very spot on. She said, this was Nicolas who said, "This scent commands attention."
Brilliant.
So it's subtle, as you say, but it leaves an impression. And you were asking me what is the composition, maybe style behind it. And I think on one side is this herbal, as you pointed out, star anise note, l'anice stellato, which is very unusual, especially in a citrus fragrance. It follows a cologne structure, but then if you look at it, it has something very English and very eccentric, which is this juxtaposition of rose and geranium. And rose and geranium is kind of like a, staple florist combination. We also find it, of course, in the rose and geranium, which was a favorite of Marilyn Monroe. And also it's what I use personally when I create a Golden Amber, because actually Special 127 is a fragrance I refer to a lot in the making of Golden Amber. So there is this very unusual rose geranium, which I think is also what makes it very unisex. And then you've got this musky oak moss business going on at the very in the background, which makes it very clean, very gentleman, but also in a way very feminine and very reassuring. So it's fresh, it's crisp, it's sharp, and it's elegant all together. A bit powdery as well. Would you agree?
Yeah, I like that. Reassuring. That's a good word. I do find it reassuring. Yeah.
It's one I wear as well. Love it. Love it. Special 127.
So let's try to follow your thoughts. So we talk about Special 127 because I like it, and I think that is one of the best fragrance to combine, as Nicola said, something fresh with something powdery, something masculine with something feminine, something clean with something a bit weird. But you talk about Elite. You said Elite was the fragrance of your dad. So let's start. I want to know the story behind the love you had with Elite, but at the same time, I would like to know the story of another number, because when I was studying the story of 127, I found a comment on Fragrantica of this guy who basically said, during the summer, I wear 127. During the winter, I wear 89. And after Nicola said that the base, the secret behind 127 is the rose and geranium accord, I think that also in number 89 we have this type of accord. So how can you describe one Elite and 189 if you have to convince a customer today that this fragrance is, of course, very classical, but has some hint that is very contemporary? You can start from your story, and you can start from a technical point of view. Let's see if we can. You can solve this game for me.
Well, Elite is one that was created by my grandfather.
Okay.
Well, one of the quite a few actually that were created by him, and it was launched in 1979. And my father remembers very much the sort of creative process of it, and it was one where my grandfather used to work on all of the fragrances and do all the experimenting and creating in our sort of sub-basement in a sort of area that's 2 floors below Jermyn Street.
We will take you there.
Okay.
So yeah, you must come there and sort of remember from my early days of going in to visit my father and grandfather that before you even got in the shop, the smell was just amazing. Actually, on Jermyn Street outside, because everything used to waft up through the vents because it was all done down there up until the sort of early 80s, I think. Actually,
Okay.
the process of Elite was one that he took one of the sort of early ideas he had. He just kept going back and redoing it, and it went on for several months, I think. And then in the end, I think it was my father and his cousin at the time who just said, "It's that first one that you created. That's the one that's the best one." And they managed to convince him that was the best, and that he had to, stop trying to change it, because what he'd sort of initially landed on was the perfect fragrance. And yes, and so I sort of love that connection, because I used to go and visit quite often, and it's quite funny because in those days everyone used to smoke cigars in the offices, and people could smoke cigars in the shop as well, which is strange to think about now.
Yeah.
So I remember the visit was, smelling Elite and smelling all my friends that I've kind of grown up with, and but also having this kind of background of the cigar smoke as well in the offices and the building, because it used to be the family home as well. And I just love it as a fragrance. It's got a lovely combination of the sort of initial citrus notes, but then all this sort of slightly smoky, lovely woody vetiver note that runs through it. So for me, it's just one of my favourites, and it has that nostalgic connection as well. So, yeah.
And what would you say to a guy that wants a fragrance today to convince that Elite is the right fragrance for him? Why a guy or a woman should buy Elite? According to you, that know all the story and you love the fragrance too.
Me personally, I find it very uplifting because of the citrus notes, but also very comforting because of the rich and the sort of more musky notes that come through, and it's nostalgic. And I think it's quite a complex fragrance, that it's really, you sort of appreciate all the different, this kind of the journey that the fragrance takes you on. But best way I would as I would say to all our customers really, is try it on the skin and just get to know it over a few hours or days or whatever, and then then you really know for sure if it's the one for you. But yeah, I think you can't go wrong with Elite. I think it's such a beautiful fragrance, and it has this sort of beautiful fougere heart to it as well. And a big fan of lavender as well, which doesn't sort of stand out, but it's sort of just very well blended within Elite.
I love it as well. I have to say, Elite, I tend to wear it more in the winter.
Same here, yeah.
Whereas 1-7, I wear it all year round.
Okay.
Elite, I think I associate more to cold afternoons, cup of tea.
It's almost got a sort of a feel that you're sitting around
Yeah.
an open fire.
Fireplace,
as well, like
yeah.
something comforting. And
And a lot of customers, for instance, with Bespoke, they always say, gentleman club. We can see 2 gentlemen sipping a gin and tonic.
well, I think my
Quite-
grandfather went to many of those, so I think he was very inspired by that as well.
And quite a
very
few
cool.
women actually chose Elite as well as a base. I mean, it's mostly a men's fragrance, but actually, as I'm sure you know, there is a big shift now in how women approach fragrance. And this is why a lot of women choose Special 1-7. And this is why some women actually choose something like Elite or sometimes Santal as well. So they like to explore also with the fougère side of thing. Although this is quite a fougère with gravitas. Right?
Good description.
Right.
Yes. There's gravitas.
Yeah, it's there, isn't it?
No. I understood what you said. Like I've done a classical study, so I know what you said. You said exactly a cool thing to introduce 89 because you said Elite is a fragrance that is a masculine, but today people, also women, are wearing it. You said Santal, I said 89. You can talk about both of them if you want, or you can just have few words on
89. So
89.
I think, well, I think your comment was very spot on. Definitely, there is a similar structure there in the fragrances. 89 comes after 1 to 7.
Okay.
It's a 1900s fragrance. And I think you can feel that. Whereas 1 to 7 has this very original structure we talked about earlier, very unusual. There is a hint there of woodiness, but it's very much in the background. With 89 is a woodier approach to citrus fresh that you see. And personally, I've thought about this a lot. Thank you. And I think this is very much informed by Chypre. So I think this being coming after 1 to 7, which again was formulated first in the late 1800s. This is something that, fragrance is always the result of something else that is happening in that specific time. Fragrance styles inform each other. And I think that here, I'm convinced that there is an influence of what would have been the biggest trend of that time, which was for both men and women, the Chypre. So this very oak, moss, woody, infused type of perfumes where you have, for the first time, complementing this very traditional, again, citrus floral, Victorian. Then it becomes deeper, it becomes earthier, it becomes, in a way, a bit darker. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with that?
That's a good, I think that's I think that makes sense. Yeah,
I never look at this fragrance in this way because it is, again, one more time, very fascinating. Pick one of the fragrances, and that fragrance is describing the fashion of that time. That fragrance had a huge success because it was the trend of the time, and also in England they was working on this trend.
Yeah, because if you look until the 60s and 70s, even the 80s, Chypre was everywhere. Yeah. And feminine, masculine spectrum, from Mitsuko to Paco Rabanne. It was all Chypre everywhere. However, here, I guess we should say that one of the key enchanting elements of this fragrance is the association with, of course, a gentleman who was actually a man from St. James's, right?
That's right, yes. So Ian Fleming, who used to wear the fragrance and who used to come into the shop when my grandfather was working there, and he actually mentions Floris in a few of the James Bond novels, which is really, really nice. It's a real honour to sort of be in there.
So they talk about Floris also in the movie or not?
Yeah. It's featured also in one of the latest Daniel Craig's.
They used our shaving bowl, and that was, so it's very subtle. And then I think the comment is somebody, the lady, says something to him saying, that it's quite an old-fashioned way of shaving, or something to that effect. And then he said sometimes the old ways are the best ways. But it was quite a prominent shaving scene, and so it's nice to know that was our shaving bowl.
Was it Casino Royale?
I think so.
Maybe.
I think that I remember.
He's in the bathroom
coming out,
and then she
from
shaves
Eva
him
Green mouth
with a cut throat with an open razor.
Yeah,
and it's our traditional wooden shaving bar. And I think it was Elite.
Oh, I'm not sure. I think it was 89 because I think we sent that because of the Ian Fleming connection. But and apparently, I was told that Daniel Craig, when he received the part of Bond, he sort of wanted to get to know a bit of the character of Ian Fleming, to really sort of get into under the skin of the role. And being very much a sort of method actor, and so he apparently came into the shop and bought a bottle, and just to sort of wear it and get to know the character of the fragrance, and a little hint into the character of the man himself.
Like it happened with The Darkest Tower.
Yeah, that's true.
So Churchill's movie, The Darkest Tower, I'm not sure what's that in Italian.
Of course.
And
Oldman.
apparently, I can't remember who was the leading
Yeah,
character.
yeah,
It was
Darkest
quite
Hour
quite
was-
recent.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think it was Gary Oldman.
Yeah, Gary Oldman. That's
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So apparently he came. I mean,
I dealt with his assistant actually. She bought a few bottles of Special Number 127 because he very much the same wanted to get to know the character a little bit more, and so apparently wore it on set the whole time, and so that was. I remember at the time just feeling, that was so exciting to know that the fragrance was on as part of the film, and then he went on to win the Oscar for it, which was amazing. Obviously not to do with the
because of
fragrance,
1
but
to 7.
he's an incredible actor. He's one of my.
Do you know if Gary Oldman was wearing 127 when he got the Oscar?
I don't know actually. But
You should investigate. It should be a good way to sell the fragrance. You say, if you wear this, you can win an Oscar. No, I'm joking, of course,
it'd be amazing to meet him one day, and I can ask him myself then.
Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully he'll pop in one of these days. You never know.
But if you do something in November for Churchill, I think that...
I know that was last November.
last
Yeah,
November.
because it was
sorry.
last year.
Yeah.
It was the year of the commemoration. We also have a small statue of Winston Churchill in the shop.
That's. I think it belongs to the team at Paul Roger, but they've sort of left it with us for a while, so we have that in our offices.
And it's of him painting, because I don't know if you knew this, but
Yeah,
Winston
I saw
Churchill
when
was also... Yeah.
When I called you last month,
Yeah.
and we made the meeting,
that's
you
right, we
showed me the
turned it round,
discussion.
yeah. Which was, again, him painting was, to me, what prompted me to create Golden Amber. That was when I realized that was the key element, because he was painting the landscape that I was looking at
Okay.
in the same place.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, I want to paint this landscape with fragrance. So it was the inspiration.
So if this is inspiration, I want to know more detail about Golden Amber. Then, if you agree, I will move on Purple Memoir, and then we can close on the Ledger series, which is I think the coolest thing we have on this table. Golden Amber, fun story. As I told you, I'm not in the store since a couple of years, more or less. But I'm there, I don't know, during Christmas, during, I don't know, if someone is sick. One day, I was looking at the shelf, say, I haven't seen this one, I haven't tried this one. And I tried Golden Amber. I came back home, and usually when I enter in my house, always Arianna said, no, what did you wear? It's too strong, it's too heavy, it's giving me a headache. When I wear Golden Amber, she said, this one is very good. So I wear it for most of December last year. And in that way, with that fragrance, I could survive that month. And when I spray it, I always have a good... it's like with Special 127. I smile. I have happy
Oh, that's so nice to hear.
related to that fragrance. And the things I wonder the most when I was smelling the fragrance, when I wear the fragrance, is Amber Accord, typical of the French parfumery. And my idea, the guy who invented this accord, or who make it perfect, let's say in this way, was Jean Laporte. Artisan, Maître Parfumé. And most of the amber I've smelled in my life had that type of feeling with the cistus, the sweet part from the vanillina, and a bit of woods. Among them, the most relevant one was always the patchouli. But when I smell Golden Amber, I didn't have this feeling. So you said I try to describe this fragrance when I look at the same landscape Winston Churchill used to paint. My question is, that feeling, that environment also helps you to create an English amber, let's say in this way. So something that in my mind is typically French, but with the English heritage, with the florist heritage.
Possibly so. It's a very interesting question. Fragrance brings back nice memories to you, and that your wife liked it. That's a great compliment.
I'm not the king, but I think it's the same.
You are the king of your castle.
Of my little castle, not of an empire. But
Your great castle. So, I think it's worth saying that this was not meant to be an amber.
okay.
So, again, whenever we create, thank you, a fragrance, it's always because we feel we have something to say. So it's not because we want to target specific genre or because we are thinking, this is a story. This is really like the result of a life experience, like a lot of our fragrances. It was lockdown. So it was actually a very difficult time for, humanity. Although I was lucky enough to be in Le Garda. One could have been in worse places during the pandemic. And it was exceptional because our shop was closed. And for the first time in, I don't know, I think even during the war, you kept the shop open. So maybe it was the first time ever that Florist had to close down the shop for so many months, weeks. We couldn't see customers. We're open 7 days a week. We're a place of pilgrimage from people that come to buy the Ian Fleming's, Rosaranium. People are there all the time from all around the world. So imagine Florist like an institution closed down. And we have customers calling. They want to have an appointment. They want to come and see us. And we can't see them. So I was lucky enough to get to spend some time in Le Garda, which is, I'm originally from Verona, so it's literally my hometown, a place that is very dear to me. And I always say my heart is never too far away from Florist. And once I was there enjoying this beautiful landscape, and of course, that you've got the open air and these beautiful skies, I realized that the place where I was the place where Winston Churchill was going on holiday. Then I do a bit more research. I found the king was going on holiday there. And then I do some more research and I find that Sir Laurence Olivier, who was a famous British actor married to Vivien Leigh, Via col Vento, Gone with the Wind, actress, they were all there. So I thought, oh my God, this is destiny. We need to tell a story. So I rang Edward and I said, Ed, I think I have a story here. We need to create something because I'm here I had been there for like 2 months every day. And I was just in love with the sunset. Okay. So I was just very much into the concept of golden hour. Okay. 4 o'clock until 8 o'clock. Okay. And then we saw these pictures of Winston Churchill painting the lake. And I thought, okay, so that's what I want to focus on. I want to focus on this feeling of the light changing from 4 o'clock, the shimmering of the sunlight on the water surface, so that gold turning into then orange, pink, red, all the way to amber. And then disappearing. So that was my imagination. I was trained by Jean-Claude Delenaz, so I studied perfumery through watercolors. Whenever I create, I'm very visual and I want to create a sensation, a story. So that was a driver. Then this became a citrus amber, but I think it's an accident. It wasn't meant to be an amber. And what's funny is that this then was launching the collection. We made it at the beginning during the pandemic. Give you another interesting story. Came back to London. We reopened just for a few months because then there was another lockdown, you remember. So during the second lockdown, we thought, okay, this is the perfect time to start blending. And I blended myself. I remember there was a snowstorm in London. The shop was closed and I was on my own in the lab and I blended 25 liters of golden amber. Okay. And we started to make it just when the shop reopened as like a small run. We've done this quite a number of times throughout the years where we make small batches. We still do, actually. And then sometimes if we feel they're particularly, good, we launch them into collection, which is what happened with Golden Amber. And then when this was launched, it happened to be amber trend. So it felt like, Florist wanted to kind of bask on this amber trend, but it was just how it happened.
The coincidence. I love the fact that the sky, because it was in lockdown, would have been particularly clear, I should think, as well, because there were no planes flying or anything like that. So it must have been such a unique experience, really, to have seen that sunset for such a long, every day, for such a long period of time, in such the clearest it will ever be. So quite amazing, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was, also the water was crystal clear. And there is, again, think of the light, again, 4 o'clock all the way to, so what you say, amber, cistus, vanillin, patchouli, yes, sandalwood. So all that is to me like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, you're having the aperitif, you're maybe mingling with friends. That is the very end of Golden Amber. Before you have the citrus, because Le Garda has citrus fruits traditionally, and it's very much the golden part of the golden, but I blended it with amber, not the amber as in, I don't know if you know this molecule called amber extrême. Yeah. So it's a very, very strong, modern version of an ambergris. So that gives me a very powerful, bold, energetic, shimmering bergamot.
But usually when I smell amber extreme, I always cough. So you literally put like one drop. Just
A little bit more than one drop. But when you blend it with other things, like with bergamot, it's divine. And then you're absolutely right with saying it's an English amber, because the heart is rose and geranium.
okay. So
It's neroli. So to me, it's Italian English, or it's like the English on holiday in Lake Garda, something like that. And I guess that's also what Silvio said when he smelled it. And it's September. It was September when I was there. So it's got September elements. The fig, which is what was everywhere around me. And then I brought in something very French. I guess that's probably the influence of, again, the teacher, which is cassis, which I love. They may always make fun of me at Florist, because when they see my formulas, they're like, oh, did Nicola work on this? It's like 20 gallons of cassis. Oh, there's no more cassis, Nicola.
It's true.
But you know what? I love your comment, Matteo, because you're making me think that the first accord I worked on with Jean-Claude, the first one was green. The second one was amber. And I've never thought about this, so maybe that was an influence.
golden amber. Why has the Florist DNA? How did you accept this fragrance? Because basically Nicola said it's a fragrance inspired by Italy, with French element, with French ingredients.
No,
with
but there's
amber
also
extract.
English,
No,
because
there
1
isn't.
to
No,
7
there
is
isn't.
part of
Yes.
this. The bergamot, the rose geranium.
I was joking, of
So
course.
Nicola very cleverly put in a nod to Sir Winston Churchill with the number, special number 127,
Okay.
and also
And vetiver.
Vivian Lee and Vetiver, which was a fragrance that Sir Laurence Olivier used to wear. So
With
it's
loads of patchouli.
and this is my mother's favourite fragrance at the moment, actually. So yes.
Oh, that's such a great compliment.
So that's the reason why he's in the collection.
Well, that sort of came afterwards, but it just sort of, at least that it endorses that it was it's the correct fragrance.
Yeah, it's
It's
approved
the
by the
best
family.
fragrance.
So
Yes,
it's okay. It's
true.
okay. So Nicola just tell the story of Golden Amber and how this landscape has inspired this fragrance. And I want to know which is the inspiration behind the Purple Memoir, because I know that the fragrance is inspired by Ivy Lodge. I know that Ivy Lodge in the story of your family has been very important. I have also one mean question after the story I can anticipate, which is the use of vanilla in the base. Because if I imagine your family 200 years ago walking through a village, I'm pretty sure they couldn't smell vanilla. First of all, tell us the story of Ivy Lodge, of this fragrance, and then maybe Nicola can describe us why you decided to put vanilla in the base.
Okay. Well, yes. So, Purple Memoir. It's inspired by Ivy Lodge, which was the family home for a few generations of the family. I never got to see it, unfortunately, because it's sadly no longer there. But it was referred to in lots of letters. So it was the family home from the sort of mid 1800s up until the early 1900s. And it was the home that gets referred to in a lot of the old letters that we have as dear old Ivy Lodge. And it's where Mary Ann Floris, who married a gentleman called James Bodnam, which is why my surname is Bodnam rather than Floris, they had 16 children, and they were all brought up there. So all 16 children, to them it was their fond family home. So we know that they had lavender within the gardens, and the gardens are very important to them because we have this beautiful photo album that we still have in German Street, actually, and it's been very lovingly put together because you can see that they've cut out various photographs in there, and some of them are heart-shaped, and it just has all the pictures of the family members themselves, the 16 children and their parents, and various different family celebrations, probably lots of christenings, I should think, and weddings. Okay. And so we really wanted to sort of capture this kind of like the warm association with this family home, and then the lavender connection, partly because we didn't have a lavender fragrance within our collection at the time. So Penny, one of our perfumers who is retired now, we worked on this together, and it was something that was very important, and we both absolutely love lavender. So it was really sort of thinking about this, and wanted to create a sort of more of a sort of modern take on lavender and to the other lavenders that we've done in the past. So that's why we added this vanilla note, and we're also sort of thinking of these kind of warm associations of the family home, and thinking of all the baking and all that would have been going on there, probably all the time, I should think. And so it's sort of, it does have a bit of a connection to the family home as well. And I think the smell of baking to so many people is so comforting, and so that just seemed like the perfect sort of element to add to the fragrance itself.
I wonder whether there was also subconsciously, so this, for the making of this memory, you used a lot the family photo album, which of course we couldn't bring it here, so we'll show it to you once you come to London. It's a fantastic late 1800s photo album. You know, it's dated, so with all these kind of old paper, old book fill, vanilling is there. So maybe, I wonder whether maybe subconsciously with Penny, what you thought was...
Sure.
Because you know that
subconsciously that probably
old books
well.
smell like vanillin. So one of the ways you extract vanillin is from the paper pulp industry.
Okay.
So there is a connection there between vanillin and the smell of paper. And so I wonder whether maybe, you know, with this whole constant approaching kind of aged material, aged paper that we do at Jeremy Street, because between formula books and ledgers and albums, maybe subconsciously.
No, I think it probably is something to do with it. Something that always reminds me of the smell of paper is another ingredient, iris as well. I always associate with sort of old books.
I ask you the reason why you add vanilla, because I'll tell you this story. When I told you, the day I discovered about the Royal Warrant was my first training, and at the time I had one big love, which was vanilla, and I had something that I really hated, that was lavender. Nowadays, things are kind of changed drastically, so I'm more into aromatics and always less into sweet fragrances. When I was there, and I said, no, this for me is terrible. It smells like old lady. And she made me layer with vanilla. And in that precise moment, I said, okay, you can do some magic trick with fragrances, because you can literally change the story the fragrance is telling, just adding another character. And with vanilla, I start to understand, okay, vanilla and lavender works. It's very cool. So when I smell it, say, okay, this fragrance could be the fragrance I dreamt when I was 26 years old. And nowadays, a lot of people are asking me about lavender, but it's fun because our very young customer, they are asking for lavender. And I think that a fragrance like this can answer to their needs.
It's a love or hate lavender.
Yeah.
We see it all the time, which I think why this fragrance is so beautiful, because I think it flirts with lavender, but it's not a lavender.
It's not a strict and dark lavender. You have also the green opening that is very fresh, and then it didn't become that, let's say, that soapy notes that smells like wardrobe, because the ladies used to put lavender in the...
Yeah, we have the
wardrobe.
same comment in England.
The drawers, yes.
So it doesn't add that smell. And it also is not that dry. It's bright.
And
I think
sandalwood. There is a creamy sandalwood, right?
Yes, yeah, there is.
We have discussed about probably the most iconic fragrance of the line. We have discussed some of my favorites one, the new launch. But on this table, we have two fragrances, which is the first time they landed in Italy. So I'm very happy to talk with you about sandalwood and rose geranium, which are two fragrances of your, let's say, top-level fragrances. In Italy, we say fiore all'occhiello. How can we translate fiore all'occhiello?
Top of the range.
The top of the range, okay. Easier, less romantic. Fiore all'occhiello is more romantic. Which are rose geranium and sandalwood. So you already have a lot of rose geranium accord in the fragrance we have smelled together, but as Nicola said, sandalwood is an element that is often present in your creation. Golden Serenade, of course, but also Santal. First of all, I would like to know why did you create this collection and why this collection is, you are so jealous of it. And second, I know that we have a funny story on rose geranium. I would like you to explain to the audience how clear is the difference of Indian sandalwood when you smell sandalwood and Australian sandalwood when you smell Santal. That is something that when you smell the true fragrances for me is very clear.
With, as you just mentioned, sandalwood at the end, I'll just, that was, and it was particularly exciting project because it was something that we used to have a sandalwood fragrance for many years, sort of throughout the 50s, 60s, 70s, and it was discontinued in the 1980s. Okay. And it's something that, from talking to lots of our customers for many, many years, a lot of people have said, you used to do this fantastic sandalwood fragrance that I was so upset when you discontinued it, and the reason it was because we couldn't use the Indian sandalwood oil, had just become so difficult to source, and so it was something that we were sort of forced to do, really. A perfumer that used to work for us for many years, and he's been a perfumer for, I think, about 60 years or more, and he's just an incredible knowledge in fragrance. I think there's nothing he doesn't know, I don't think, but he's very humble. If I ever say that to him, he always says, "Edward, I know this much," and but he very kindly agreed to have a look at our formula books and actually revisit our original sandalwood formula as to the original formula from our books from the very early days. And he was amazing because he was able to sort of certain ingredients were described within the formula, some of the raw materials, but some were more sort of accords or that he recognized the name of, so then he was able to sort of say, I remember that, exactly what that accord smelt like, so because it was a sort of a combination or a molecule, and so he was able to recreate it exactly as he remembered the fragrance to be as well, and sort of splitting it down like that. And so yeah, it was very exciting. I spent the week with him in his perfumery, and we worked on that, and so yeah, it was a real joy to be able to bring it back and add it to the range again. And the Ledgers collection used to just be hand poured pretty much to order. Now we've just sort of slightly increased that, so they're just available in Jermyn Street and on the website. So it's great that we're able to bring them here today.
I'm very happy about
I'm
this.
so pleased.
It's the first time.
Yeah, I told you, it's the first time they landed in Italy. Very happy about it.
So that was, and it's something that was incredible to bring it back, and it's sort of one of those fragrances that I remember growing up with in the, I suppose, late 70s and early 80s, and and it's one that's been so popular with so many of our customers, but I think it's still a bit of a well-kept secret being in the Ledgers, so we have to gradually let our customers know that it is back, and lots of people have been thrilled that it's back in the range again.
So basically it's not Indian sandalwood, it's a recreation of it, because when I smell it, I have both the oils, I have both Indian and Australian in my store. When I smell it, I say, okay, it smells like Indian sandalwood, it's creamy, not closer to cedarwood, like when I smell the Australian one, it's flat, but it misses that creaminess. It's powdery, but it's not creamy.
When we say Australian sandalwood, we come into different things. So the native, the original ingredient is Indian Mysore sandalwood, which is Santalum album. Yeah. So because of deforestation, Australia has helped. They're very good with rules and harvesting and all that. So now Australia is the leading producer of Santalum album. Okay. However, the native sandalwood of Australia is Santalum spicatum. Okay. Sure. It's a different one. So it depends to which one you're referring to. Normally, to me, I kind of describe it in a visual way. To me, Indian sandalwood Santalum album is kind of this. You know, it's a continuous, very smooth, very creamy, very subtle. Again, to quote my teacher, he would say that sandalwood is like a glass of hot milk.
Okay.
Which to me is the best way to explain also what it does to the soul. Of course, now a lot of people are lactose intolerant, so maybe it was a comment that was more useful 20 years ago. But anyway.
I eat milk. Like warm milk is one of the things I eat the most. Like the scent of it is terrible.
Whereas Santalum spicatum for me is like this. It's thicker. It's a little bit more fatter and a bit dirtier, perhaps, and a little bit more spiky. It's less smooth to me than the actual Santalum Santalum album. But this one here, you must look at it carefully because, I mean, from a very strict evaluation point, this is an amber fragrance. So it's got, yes, the sandalwood, but there is this very, very warm combination of resins. Benzoin. There's a lot of benzoin there. It has a very unique personality in being a sandalwood because it is creamy, woody sandalwood, but it's also warm, what the French call ambré. So you have this vanilla resin, but very much on the side of benzoin, which not everyone maybe knows what benzoin. Benzoin is a tree resin that actually smells a bit chocolatey. So it has that aspect. And then there is a hint of jasmine as well in there. It's a fragrance that doesn't talk up here. It talks from here down. There's no top notes, which is why I think it makes it very, very interesting, very, very niche. So you will really have to find, I think, the customer that really wants to embrace that experience of sandalwood, but in a very different way. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense. And the sandalwood that was in the original sandalwood, it was, we actually have a bottle of the actual oil in our perfumery, which is from the 60s, and it's still in there, and it still smells beautiful. It's really buttery and smooth and comforting. So yes, it was very much using that style of sandalwood.
So, you know, this is a classic. Again, talking about celebrities, Cary Grant, Noel Coward, the English actor. This is not for everyone. It's a scent that you need to look for. It doesn't shout. It's very quiet. And interestingly enough, you know that there's been a trend in the last few years of this called skin scents. So close to your skin, musky, la la. To me, actually, this could speak to that type of customer. Although this comes zillion eras before the close to skin trend, I think it could speak to that customer. Don't you think?
If I look at the bottle, if I look at the name, I will never say this. I wore the fragrance. I didn't have the idea of skin scent. I got what you said, that is not is something you don't really want to share with other people. Is my fragrance. If you want to smell it, you have to come closer. You have to
Yeah,
smell
that's what
it.
I mean when I say skin scent.
It's very-
I don't mean
it's very
musky.
intimate.
I mean, yeah.
It's very elegant. Instead, a fragrance that both men and women loved in the past, and I hope they're still loving it, is something that Alessandro, that is a guy that works in the store, asked me, okay, when we sell all the bottles, can I get the tester? Because he immediately fell in love with Strauss Geranium. So let's go now on a fragrance that I think won't separate the audience, because it has been male fan as well as female fans, and one of them is probably the most iconic woman in 20th century, which is Marilyn Monroe. I read the story on your website when in Jermyn Street they received this paper and said, we sold a bottle of Rose Geranium for Marilyn. I think your father was there, or not?
My grandfather was
grandfather.
there, yeah.
Okay.
But my father tells the story, and that because Marilyn Monroe, when she came in, I think it was the only time that she was in London. She was staying at
Came to
Claridge's.
London.
Yes, she was at Claridge's, and she came into the shop when my grandfather was there and bought 6 bottles of our rose geranium fragrance, but she used an alias when she came in, which is, I think, what a lot of, I suppose if you're that well known, a lot of people used to do back in the day. So she used the name Miss Dorothy Blass. So we have this receipt that's a very sort of unconvincing receipt because it has the name scribbled out, and then my grandfather's written on there Marilyn Monroe Miller. So she had 6 bottles sent out to the Beverly Hills Hotel where she was staying next.
Can we spray? Because when I spray, I love geranium. I love rose. Actually, geranium I think is one of the most elegant flowers a man can wear.
Yeah, I agree. I love geranium. So uplifting.
So bright, so classy, and also this citrusy notes in the opening is.
Yeah, citronelle.
It's weird because if you say citronelle, geranium, 99% of the people will say mosquito repellent.
Yeah, it has totally that. That comment always comes up.
But when it settled down, is very elegant.
An expensive mosquito repellent.
Very expensive.
That's what I say when people tell me.
But
one of the extra advantages of wearing it.
Yeah. You are smelling good and you are keeping mosquito away. No,
and you're smelling like Marilyn Monroe as well. Yeah.
And you would never guess Marilyn would have worn this because we all know, what her favorite, or maybe what she was paid to say was her favorite. Very different scent profile, number 5 than this one. It's got nothing to do with an aldehydic floral, which again, maybe when I think about this, I always think that maybe that also tells of how much we don't know about Marilyn, because I wouldn't associate this with the persona that she has portrayed over the years.
Not at all.
I personally love it too, and I actually have a reason. The only ever bottle of perfume I smashed on the floor in my life was a geranium perfume that stayed in my room the smell stayed for weeks and weeks and weeks. And actually, I came to love it, maybe for that reason.
I don't know why I love it, but when I started the job, I hated the rose scent because the only real rose I could smell was in the supermarket soap I had in my house, so nothing.
It's everywhere.
High profile, very low profile rose. But rose after rose, I start to discover the green facet of the rose. And when I arrived, I think it was maybe Geranium odorata by Diptyque. You had like an hint of vetiver, some pepper. That fragrance was clean, classy, fresh, and not so common. So that's why I start to like geranium. And this brightness, this fresh note that is going directly to your brain.
It's sharp. Yeah, there's a degree of sharpness there.
Yeah, it can be a connection with balsamic notes like eucalyptus. Okay.
You mean herbal?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then don't forget rose. If you look at the molecular breakdown, rose has got citronelle.
Yeah.
There's citrus notes in the rose, which is why it's a fresh flower. So the combination works really well.
On the skin, that freshness is even more powerful, actually.
How old is this fragrance?
It's from, I think, about the mid-1800s.
This is like a love or hate, another one. And one of those pilgrimage fragrances, like 89, isn't it? Because we also do a bath essence of this. And how many ladies come in and...
It's so relaxing. Yeah?
And recently there was the day when we ran out, so we're out of stock.
And so many men as well, actually. It's... like you say, it's very unisex. We have so many men that love rose geranium. And
they get very cross when for some reason it's out of stock.
Yes.
No, because you have the aficionados that have been buying this forever, for their whole lives. They come in, it gets very dramatic. How dare you, running out of rose geranium bath essence?
By the way, I suggest you a book that a lady brought me in the store. I'm reading right now. It's called Musk, and it's a story of this man that is wearing the same cologne since 60 years. They discontinued it, and he couldn't live. He's like, I cannot do. And
I know, we see that all the time. We see that all the time because in 300 years, you know how many things have been discontinued.
Like 99% of the original
Not to talk about reformulations, that we leave it for the next episode.
Okay. I thank you very much for
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you,
Here.
Matteo.
and share your thoughts, your knowledge, your stories.
Been a
It's-
pleasure.
It's such a pleasure.
It's
Grazie
the
mille.
reason why I'm very fascinated by this job, knowing the fun facts, also the fact that Marilyn and the wrong name, the story of Golden Amber, is something. It really gives me the positive energy to continue doing this type of job with.
Well, it's
And
a lovely
again-
thing
Smile.
to say. Thank you so much.
You need to come to London.
For sure, I'll try to come to visit Jeremy Street with
Oh,
you.
I hope so. That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matteo. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed this interview. And good night, and see you at the next episode. Bye bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.